Don't move. Turn your fantasy football into reality. Here's CJ.
Welcome back. You know, there are so many injuries and there are so many guys that you could be. It's just, you know what? Some of my teams have made the playoffs and some have not. I have just come to the realization now that waivers isn't going to cure it. But if I'm in a dynasty team, and this is for you, a dynasty owner, this is when you start to look at what you're doing next year. Now, I'm not saying tanking. I'm assuming your trade deadlines are over. I know there's a couple of leagues I'm in where there's just a couple of days left before the trade deadline. But if I'm building for next year, the draft isn't the way to do it. The way to do it, I believe, is this. I made some notes here, as I always do. I write things down, and this is just for my own clarity as well as yours, hopefully. So generally what I do is I look for rookies, maybe second-year players like John Mechie, guys who haven't lived up to expectation, maybe through no fault of their own. Kyle Phillips, injury prone to this point. I'm still willing to hold a bench spot for those kind of guys for one more year in the dynasty leagues. It'll be their year 3, and there's opportunity there for these guys because they were good draft picks, and the teams are patient with them and haven't just cut them loose. So the fact that the team has faith in these guys means I have faith in these guys as well. So when I look at my notes, I look at a guy on my team. Okay, my team's out of the playoffs, and I'm looking at next year. I've got Robert Woods. Now, I haven't used him much the last couple of years. He's had a couple of good games, and he's sort of an emergency guy. I was just kind of hoping. But I'm going to cut him loose now because he's of no value to me. He's not going to help me make the playoffs. And you know, as soon as you or I cut him, he's going to have a great game. He'll be the waiver wire darling of the week. It's just the way it goes. But you know what? I could hold him, but at the end of the season, he's not going to be worth anything. So I might as well get rid of him now, cut bait, as so they say, and get on the waiver wire and start looking around at some of these guys that I can replace him with for next year. These guys were draft picks, guys that we fought over in the rookie draft last year, but for whatever reason haven't turned it on this year. And the first place I go look, as I mentioned in my last show, was I look at the kick return guys. And if you look at them, as soon as Christian Kirk got hurt the other day, the first thing I did was I went to the Jacksonville depth charts and I looked to see who's returning the kicks. Parker Washington, and you know how the rest of that game went for him. And this week, you know, everyone wants him. Whether or not Zay Jones becomes the guy or not, but Parker Washington is now a guy, you've seen what he can do, so now you want him, put him on your team, and wait and see what happens next year. That's a good long shot wide receiver. And there's a few of them out there. I talked about Darius Davis, and they just keep using. What you're looking for is a guy that the team uses a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more. Those are the guys you want to keep tabs on, the guys that you thought were going to be good, but maybe they still will be. They just haven't had the opportunity yet. Quentin Johnston. Now everyone's kind of down on him. 21 pick in the draft, right? Well, a few years ago, the same team picked a guy 7th overall that was a tremendous draft bust. He had nothing his first year. His name was Mike Williams. So Johnston lately has been coming on. And I'm telling you, next year, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, as good as they are, they're going to be cap casualties because they're going to have to start paying Justin Herbert a whole lot more than he's making now, and that's the logical place to go. So on your team, same idea. You get rid of a Robert Woods, you pick up a Parker Washington or a Xavier Gibson. He had a nice game the other day too, especially if your team in your league or your league allows the kick return yards. These guys are pulling 50, 60, 70 yards in kick returns, which in some leagues is 5, 6, 7 points without them even touching the ball offensively. And that's not a bad guy to have on your bench in case they get to play. Right? Maybe they'll run one back once in a while. Well, maybe they won't, but anyway, who else is out there, you ask? Funny you should say, Adrian. This is for you because I have a list. Surprise, surprise. I wrote up a list of guys that I'm just targeting. It's not a real long list, and some of them are kind of obvious, but these are the guys that I see teams using a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more, and I'm starting to get excited about the future prospects for these guys. Okay. Devin Tompkins and Trey Palmer in Tampa, both of them, they're on the upward trend. You know that Evans isn't going to play forever, and Godwin probably is on his way out. There's going to be cap casualties there too. They're going to have to pay a quarterback next year. I like that Malik Heath in Green Bay. He's undrafted rookie, but he's getting some shots. Trey Tucker in Las Vegas. I got a feeling that Adams might be leaving, and that's a guy I want to have on my bench if he does, just in case. Cedric Tillman had a good game a couple of weeks ago, and they're starting to use him a little more, a little more, a little more. He might be out of the bag now, like Jonathan Mingo I was going to have on this list, but lately he's been getting more and more and more attention, and it's getting better for him. I already mentioned John Mechie, the Seattle Seahawks. Lockett's getting a little older, and Jake Bobo, they use him a lot, and they love him in the media there. And I've read stories on him and stuff, and I'd like to have him on my team. I'd also like to have Marvin Mims. Mims has not had the greatest season, and before him there was a guy on Denver called Brandon Johnson, and that guy was starting to become something, and then he got hurt. He's on the IR. So I'm just saying, keep these guys on your radar. Get rid of the guys you're not going to use next year. Maybe you can trade some guys in the draft and get some of these guys like Wicks and stuff like that. The guys that are on the uptrend that aren't your superstar Jefferson types. Anyway, better to trade a third or fourth round pick for a guy who might play than take a gamble on someone who never will. Because after all, in my world, rookies get coaches fired. Hey, I'm CJ. Enjoy your weekend. Hope you have a great playoff if you're in it. But if you're like me and half my teams are in and half my teams are out, right now I'm concentrating on the teams that are out. Like, subscribe. See you again soon.